Okay, let's go over the difference between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So this is just a very, very quick overview of what's happening and the differences between them. If we start with spermatogenesis, we have our twin cells, or stem cells, that are undergo meiosis, both 1 and 2. So in spermatogenesis, we're going to go through both phases of meiosis. And the end result is we're going to have 4 different sperm cells that are now haploid. So the purpose of meiosis is to go from 2N, or diploid, cut our genetic material in half, down to haploid, with 1 set of chromosomes in each individual sperm cell. So this is continuous, starts at puberty, and a complete cycle of meiosis 1 and 2. And the end result, you start with 1 cell, 2N cell, you end up with 4 haploid cells. Now this contrasts with oogenesis. Oogenesis, again, you start with those 2N cells, we call them the oogonia, and it starts before birth, replicating and replicating and replicating. Some of those cells are going to start to differentiate and go through meiosis 1, and they're going to become our primary oocyte. But they start meiosis 1, they don't complete it. At puberty, each month one of those cells are going to start to go through meiosis 1 and finish that off. So we started meiosis 1 before birth. At puberty, we're going to pick it back up again. So we finish meiosis 1. The result of that is 2 cells. So we have a secondary oocyte and a polar body. The polar body is really just a little shuttle to get rid of the extra DNA material. Most of all of the cytoplasmic stuff, all the good organelles and everything you need is going to go into the secondary oocyte. So we've gone from our diploid down to our haploid cells, and we end with a polar body and a secondary oocyte. And this is the product of meiosis 1. And we're going to hold off there until ovulation. Also at this time, our follicle that surrounds our oocyte is developing to maturity as well. So as the egg is developing, the follicle is also developing. So our secondary oocyte, ovulation occurs, and the follicle releases that secondary oocyte. And now we have 2 options, 2 paths that this oocyte can take. If it's not fertilized, it goes through atresia. It just degenerates and breaks down. If it is fertilized, this sets off meiosis 2, or the second step of meiosis, which results in either a polar body, and then when combined with sperms, we end up with our zygote. So again, we're still needing to get rid of that additional material, that additional genetic material. So we still have our polar body as the oocyte is finishing meiosis. It then combines with the genes and DNA from sperm, and we get our zygote, which will then become our embryo. So oogenesis, recap, this multiple steps. It starts before birth. Meiosis happens kind of in fragments, and it depends on a lot of things. Does this cell reach puberty? If so, okay, then it can undergo, some of them, not all of them, will undergo finish up meiosis 1 and undergo ovulation. After ovulation, there's 2 paths. It can, if it's fertilized, it will finish meiosis, go through meiosis 2, and shuttle off a polar body. If it is not fertilized, it will go through atresia and degenerate. So, starts before puberty, can continue to occur throughout life. This is very cyclical, in contrast with spermatogenesis, which was continuous. So cyclical versus continuous. Spermatogenesis, we ended up with the 4 sperm cells at the end of meiosis that was derived from 1 diploid cell. The end of oogenesis, we're going from diploid down to haploid still, but the final product is 1 viable egg. one viable oocyte that can be fertilized. So we're still cutting our genetic material, but the end products of each process are different.